They're not small choices at all. Those details are everything.
You're listening to the Right On Podcast, where we help you get the story in your head onto the page.
Ever start a book and instantly connect with a character? They just grab you from the first page.
Oh, totally. It's like magic how authors can make you care about someone you just met.
Right. We're going to unpack how authors create those compelling characters, especially in those first few pages.
Because that first chapter is crucial, right? It's the author's chance to hook the reader.
Exactly. And we're using excerpts from the Right On Podcast's guide on crafting compelling characters to really break it down.
Love that guide. And one of the first things they talk about is that power of a first impression.
Yeah. Like in real life, those first glimpses, those first impressions tell you so much.
Totally. Think about meeting someone new. You notice their clothes, how they talk, their mannerisms.
It's all about those details, right?
Yep.
And authors, they do the same thing but with words on a page.
Exactly. Instead of just telling us, this character is charming, they'll show us that charm in action.
Oh, like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. Remember how she's introduced?
Yes. Surrounded by those smitten Tarleton twins hanging on her every word.
Exactly. Mitchell doesn't just say she's captivating, she shows us.
And we immediately get a sense of her charisma, but also a hint of manipulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
All in those first few interactions.
Yeah.
That makes you wonder what she's capable of, right?
Totally. And that's what makes her so compelling from page 1.
It's all about intrigue. And, this guide also talks about the importance of showing, not telling.
Oh, that's a classic writing rule for a reason.
Right. Don't just tell me a character is brave, show me.
Exactly. And that's where strong verbs and vivid descriptions come in.
Oh, for sure. Like that opening of Mice and Men. Steinbeck doesn't just tell us about George and Lenny's personalities.
He paints a picture with his words.
Right. You can practically feel the heat as they walk.
Yeah.
And those descriptions.
Yes. George being small and quick with restless eyes, and Lenny, huge, shapeless of face, dragging his feet.
It's like we're forming our own first impressions of them just from those details.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another key element this guide talks about, giving your character something to fight for.
Yes. A goal, a motivation, a reason for us to care.
Exactly. Because readers connect with desire, with purpose.
Oh, totally. It's like, why should I care about this character? What are they striving for?
Right. And when a character has a clear goal, we become invested in their journey. Think about Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Talk about high stakes from the get-go.
Right. Her goal is crystal clear survival.
For herself and Prim, it's that primal instinct to protect her family that sucks you in.
Exactly. It resonates with readers because we all understand on some level that need to protect the people we love.
It makes her instantly relatable, even though most of us will never face anything like the Hunger Games.
Exactly. And that's the power of a well-crafted character.
Okay, so we've got those strong first impressions, showing instead of telling, and giving characters a goal.
What else makes those fictional folks jump off the page? Let's dig into it.
And this guide suggests one way to do that, to make those characters even more relatable, is to give them some internal conflict.
Oh, 100%. Because nobody's perfect. Right.
Exactly. It's those flaws and contradictions that make characters feel real.
Totally. We all have those moments of self-doubt, those inner struggles.
Right. It's what makes us human.
Yeah.
The guide even uses Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird as an example.
Which is so interesting because at first glance, you might think, well, he's the moral compass of the story, right?
Right. He's the good guy trying to do the right thing.
But it's a flawed system he's living in.
Exactly. And that's where the conflict comes in.
Yeah.
He's wrestling with those big issues of his time, racism, prejudice.
And it's not always clear-cut how to fight against those things.
Right. He's trying to be a good man, a good father, in a world that doesn't always make it easy.
And that struggle, that internal battle, it just adds so much depth to his character.
Makes him even more heroic in my mind.
Oh, for sure. Because he's not perfect, but he's trying,
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about internal conflict. This guide also highlights the power of dialogue in those first chapters.
Oh, yeah. Dialogue is huge for character development.
Right. It's like the way a character speaks can tell so much about them, even beyond the words themselves.
Absolutely. Their background, their education, their mood, even their social status, it can all come out in how they talk.
It's like that saying, you can tell a lot about a person by the way they talk. And the guide actually uses White Teeth as an example.
Oh, I love that book. Zadie Smith, she's a master of dialogue.
She really is. And they specifically talk about Archie Jones. They say his dialogue, which is very ordinary, even resigned, kind of reveals his whole worldview.
It's like you can hear the weariness in his voice, the weight of his experiences.
Subtle but powerful.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got first impressions showing instead of telling, goals, internal conflict, and dialogue that sings.
What else does this guide say about crafting those unforgettable characters?
Yeah.
What's the secret sauce? It's funny you mentioned relatable quirks and fears, because one of the things I love about those first chapters that really hook me is that sense of vulnerability.
Absolutely. When an author is willing to peel back the curtain and show us a character's fears, insecurities, or vulnerabilities right away,
Hmm.
it draws you in.
It's like, okay, this character is flawed and human, just like me. That resonates so much more than a character who feels distant or too perfect.
Exactly. It creates that instant connection, that sense of empathy that makes you invested in their journey.
Like, when I think about some of my favorite opening chapters, I think about books like Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine.
Oh, such a good one.
Right. You meet Eleanor and she's so quirky, so different, but you can tell she's also deeply lonely, just below the surface.
And that mix of humor and vulnerability makes you root for her from the start.
It does. You want her to find happiness, to connect with others, even if it's on her own terms. And thinking back to what we were discussing earlier about showing instead of telling, the author, Gail Honeyman, doesn't just tell us Eleanor is lonely.
She shows us through Eleanor's actions, her rigid routines, her awkward interactions, those phone calls to her mother where we only hear one side of the conversation.
And those details paint such a vivid picture of her isolation. We feel it on a visceral level. It makes you realize how important those seemingly small choices are in crafting a character that truly resonates with readers.
Pardon me for the interruption, but did you know that reading is one of the best ways to become a better writer? Would you like to take a peek at our favorite books on writing craft? You can find a link to our recommended reading list in the show notes.
They're not small choices at all. Those details are everything. It's the difference between a character who feels like a list of traits and one who feels like a real, complex human being.
So true. It's like any writer can tell us their character is brave or kind, but it's those carefully chosen details, those moments of vulnerability, those quirks of dialogue that make us believe it.
It's about getting us to feel something for these characters, even if it's just a flicker of recognition, a sense of shared humanity.
Like, isn't that what we're all looking for in a story? That connection, that escape into someone else's world, that feeling of, hey, I'm not alone in this.
Absolutely. And it all starts with those crucial first pages, those first impressions that stay with us long after we've finished the book.
So the next time you pick up a book, pay attention to those opening chapters. What techniques are the authors using to draw you into their character's world? What makes you care about these fictional beings?
Because once you start noticing those details, you begin to appreciate the craft of writing on a whole new level.
It's like you've unlocked a secret code. And you realize that creating compelling characters is a combination of talent, skill, and maybe just a little bit of magic.
It's the magic of storytelling at its finest.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now go forth and create those unforgettable characters. And if you need a little inspiration, you know where to find us. Until next time, happy reading.
Want the free guide mentioned in this podcast? The link is in the show notes. That's it for this episode of the Right On Podcast. Hit subscribe for more invaluable writing advice to help you bring your novel to life.